All right, folks, shalom and welcome to the Yishai Fleisher show, where we are broadcasting over both Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and on the Land of Israel network. Shalom and welcome, everybody. We have a fabulous show lined up for you today, and we are joined right off the bat by our beloved Rabbi Rav Mike Feuer. Rav Mike, shalom and welcome to the show. Hold on one second. Let's do that again. I actually have you muted. Let's try that again. Yeah. All right. So we are joined by our beloved Rav Mike Feuer. Rav Mike, welcome to the show.
Shalom Yishai. It's good to see you. There's a lot of people in life who would like to know where that mute button exactly is.
Yeah, it's on the little screen there, and I'm managing a lot of different things in order to.
So I just need to take it just every once in a while.
Well, we'd all love to mute one another sometimes, but. One of the things that has muted a lot of people is the coronavirus. It has muted many businesses. It has muted many educational opportunities, and a lot of people aren't getting to school. My good friend Eric, who listens to the show and who lives in Switzerland, was supposed to be in New York for the year, but since JTS couldn't have real classes, so therefore he's actually not coming into New York. For the year, and so a lot of people are muted. But you, as an educator, and my other friends, many of them who are educators, that's just who I roll with, are telling me that there is a bumper crop of students coming into Israel, even though there are many corona restrictions. They are coming in. They are being asked to quarantine, shelter in place, social distance. I'm just using a lot of buzzwords. When they come into Israel for, I think right now it's still 2 weeks. And the schools, instead of saying, well, this is too complex, and with all the questions about how many students you can have in a classroom and all the challenges of also Zooming and then having all the students that are not there participate, all the technical challenges, all the legal challenges, all the health challenges, the yeshivot and the schools and the colleges have all opened up their doors and are just super excited. And the students are coming in right now. For my good friend Liad, he told me that in both the institutions that he teaches at, which is Ashrenu, a yeshiva, and Aardvark program, there's a huge amount of students coming in. And for yourself at Pardes, you told me also you're having more students this year than last year, which is amazing.
I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, from the institutional perspective, there's two things going on. One is pragmatic, and the other one I would say is mission-oriented. I mean, pragmatically speaking, an educational institution that closes its door for 1 year is unlikely to open it again. That's just the nature of the business. The margins are too tight. Your crowd that you're serving is too mobile. It rarely happens an educational institution would shut its doors and reopen. But that aside, there's also the mission, and something that I've been really trying to push with my colleagues in faculty meetings. We've had an crazy amount of pre-meetings and planning, and people are really working overtime. Is that it's also an opportunity to show the value of Mesirat Nefesh for Limud Torah, of a real sense of sacrifice, of self-sacrifice for the value of learning Torah, meaning. It's a true huge luxury, and I know many people have really enjoyed, whether it was their gap year between high school and college, or whether at Pardes we serve a post-college world. A lot of people really enjoy that year of learning. But really the question is, do we value it? Do we understand its power, its potential, and its necessity? And the answer seems to be yes right now, because a lot of people, when faced with financial difficulties or their plans have collapsed, they don't know what to do, they're seizing the opportunity to learn. And I think it's a good sign for Israel.
I think it's a beautiful sign, and I'm very proud of the state of Israel. And again, here is where the ultra-Orthodox show their great value, politically speaking. It's the ultra-Orthodox parties that they are uncompromising about certain things. And I mean uncompromising. They will not compromise.
That comes with the territory of being ultra-Orthodox. There have to be things you're uncompromising about, or you're not ultra-Orthodox.
Right, but you know, So just to explain what happened, basically the ultra-Orthodox parties just put their foot down on this thing and said, we got to open the skies for these students. We got to figure out a way and basically push it through legally. Sometimes I think to myself that countries like America and other countries, since they don't have an ultra-Orthodox voting bloc, they're really missing something. We have and they call themselves Shomrei Hasaf. They are protectors of the threshold. Right. And they just stand on guard. That's the way they see themselves. And Torah learning is like number one. And this country will be bent towards making sure that these, what is it? Was there a number? Did I hear a number of 12,000 students coming in for their? I think I heard that number. And I want to say that for every one of these students, it's a totally life-altering year. It's a completely life-altering year. Had their trajectory sent them because of coronavirus to another year of college or another year of, I don't know, partying in Aruba.
Well, remember, more than half of those are in the ultra-Orthodox world. They weren't going to college or partying, but they were going to miss out on the level of learning, which is really only available in Israel.
First thing, there's a half that you're talking about. That's let's say 6,000 students. That's a lot. It's a lot of human beings. It's a lot of souls. And even the ultra-Orthodox, we're talking about a connection to Eretz Yisrael and to the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. So I really believe that this is a huge thing that you, your institution, Pardes, and all the other institutions are doing in the state of Israel. I'm very proud. You know what I mean? I'm very proud to see that it's like reminds me lahavdil of the Yom Kippur War when people like my mother saw the air train coming with weapons for Israel's defense coming in, and it was plane after plane after plane after plane coming in, and they saw it. They literally saw it. And here we have an air train of young people who are going to be connected to Israel and change their life forever. Listen, Rav Mike Feuer, we're on the Yishai Fleisher show. People are watching us all over the world. I do want to. Shalom, everybody. That's right. I do want to ask that you leave a comment here on whatever method that you're watching. Leave a comment. I get to see them. I'll read them out loud. For example, Penny, right here, Shanker says, "Good morning from NYC. Nice to see you both." So it's really, really a pleasure when you guys comment, especially from all over the world or anywhere. It doesn't matter. Even from not all over the world. Even from like extraterrestrial commenting. It's completely acceptable.
Are welcome.
That's right. Nanu.
You just dated yourself, man. All right, everyone, that's hashtag Nanu. You got to let Yishai know what he was talking about.
That's right. Hashtag Nanu. That's right.
Nothing else said. No more to be said there.
Right. That's right. Very good. We have a Torah portion, and here on the show every week we try to cover the Jewish Torah portion of the week. Remember that we read the Torah sequentially from the Bet of Bereshit, from the first letter of the B of Bereshit, all the way to the Lamed, the L of Israel, at the very last letter of the 5 books of Moses. We read it sequentially. Right now, we're actually in the book of Deuteronomy. What's that?
I said, and right back around again.
Right back around again. That's right. It keeps going and going. So right now, we're actually towards the end of the 5 books of Moses. We're in the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Dvarim. And we have, I don't know why, but it happens to be just one of my favorite Torah portions, and definitely one of my favorite Torah portions in the book of Dvarim.
I love it, but you've got to get a better line, man. People are going to start to sort of lose the oomph when every week you say this is one of my favorite Torah portions.
That's a Hasidic thing, you know. You ever read the Hasidic books? They're like, this holiday is the most important holiday.
This is the highest. This is it. High.
But I think they mean it, you know, and I know that I mean it. This is still the majority of this, except for a tiny little bit, is still a collection of laws. We're in the legal codec or codex. I always forget codex. Yeah, no, because codec is an audio thing. We're in the legal codex of the book of Dvarim. That's when Moses is kind of retelling us, in this case, a lot of interesting laws. But there's a lot of
the largest number of mitzvot of any parsha in the Torah.
Right. Okay. So we have the largest number of commandments, mitzvot, and also a lot of like new ones or ones that are told in a very different way. And so very interesting things. Let's go. Let's just touch right at the beginning. Chapter 21, verse 22. If a person, if a person does a kind of sin that he deserves the death penalty, and indeed he's killed, executed corporal punishment, and he's hung on a tree. No, pictures are hung, people are hanged on a tree. the hanging here, by the way, does not mean like this kind of hanging. It means after you kill him, you actually post him. If you would, yeah, you hang his body up.
Here's the original posting, yes.
That's right. Lo talini v'lato ala etz. You can't let that body stay overnight on the tree. Ki kavot tikberenu. You have to bury him bayomahu, in that very day. Why? Ki klilat Elohim talui. Right? Klilat Elohim talui. It is a curse of God to be hanged.
That's a tough one to translate.
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple ways. I mean, Rashi kind of goes with your reading. Unclus goes with a completely different reading, right? It's al dechav kadam Hashem. It's the love that it's because you were found guilty before God that you have been hung. So it's a bit of a mystery, and the Mishnah even goes further with it. But it's a powerful phrase.
Yeah, I think. Those are good interpretations. I think the simple read is it is a curse of God to be hanged, but in any case, do not defile your land. Do not defile the land which God gives you as an inheritance. So yes to death penalty. Yes, this person deserved to die, but no to I mean, and the person's dead. Like, what's the biggie? You know what I mean? So let him hang another day. This, by the way, reminds us of the great story of Esther, who, when the 10 sons of Haman were killed, she says after they were killed, hang him so that they be seen as hanged. So they be seen as hanged. They are not they're not killed by hanging. They're after they're killed, they're hung up so that everybody could see what the deal is. Of course, if you don't know about this, look into the codes which bring a relationship, the Torah codes which bring a relationship between the 10 hanged sons of Haman to the 10 hanged men at Nuremberg. Look into it. It's an amazing story, right? Are you into that or not?
Sure.
Great answer. Okay. In any case, tell me a little bit, Rav Mike, why you think that there's this why? What's the big deal? Maybe he did a really bad thing. Everybody should see it. Hang him for another day. Like, what is it telling us about the human body or the connection to God?
Yeah, I mean, I really am deeply influenced by Rashi's reading when he says that he gives a Mashal. I mean, he speaks about the fact that that God is created in man is created in the sort of image and likeness of God. So therefore, he gives a Mashal, like a metaphor that you imagine that two twin brothers, one grows up to be the king and the other one becomes a bandit. When the bandit is caught and hung, everyone's going to walk by and say, look, there's the king hanging on the tree. And so humanity has the same capacity to either sanctify or desecrate God's name. So while it might be necessary to show that there are consequences for our actions, and that's how I understand the mitzvah of Lina, that you don't just execute this person, but you put them out there so people can see. At the same time, you want to minimize and move that away because it's really a failure. It's a failure on the part of humanity and of the divine capacity within us that we commit crimes and that we're forced to punish them. And so therefore, in order to preserve the divine, we make this as brief as possible. So, it's like yes, there is, but no, there isn't. Like, know the limit of things. It's like, yes, that has to be done. And yes, he's got to go up. But like, there's a limit. There's a limit of things. There's they say it in Hebrew, midatiyut, like proper measure. Proportionality.
All right. Here's one that I think that most people who would do a show like we do, not that so many people do a show like we do.
Nobody does it like we do, man.
That's right. Hold on. I lost it. Where is it? Oh, yeah.
I lost it long ago.
There it is. This is a personal pet peeve, a personal thing of mine, which is lost objects. I hate losing things. And I hate losing things oftentimes because it sets off like a mental thing. Like if you had to say that I had like one phobia or thingamabob that sets me a little loopy, It's like losing things. And the reason that happens is because my brain, against my own wishes, says to me, oh, if you lost this stupid pencil, what else was with it? Something else. And you need that thing, maybe. And it sets me going. I've actually over the years very much Blian Ara been able to
work through that.
Yeah, and I don't know what the root cause of that is, but whatever. It's one of these things. Like we have things. But
it's
the
not
Torah
tells what the root cause is.
Right, exactly. And the Torah tells us though is that if somebody's donkey is lost, you got to bring it into, and you find it. You got to bring it into your house until your brother asks for it and you return it to him. And then you should do for his donkey and for his dress and for any of the things that your brother lost.
Garment.
And if garment,
yeah,
garment. Thank you. I'm just open-minded like that.
Because the issue of men wearing women's clothing is in this parsha too. Is that a
That's right. Thank you. That's right. Here, it's actually close by. It's a good point.
Yeah, it's coming right up.
That's right. And just the point of returning stuff to people. I could have theorized, Rav Mike. I could have theorized. Look, you forgot it. You lost it. You know what I mean? Finders keepers, losers weepers. I just made that up.
Intensive law, all that.
Right, all that stuff, and you could just say no. You know what I mean? And this now where does this go? Just so people understand, Jewish people, like observant people, like we take this very seriously. Like with my kids, I take this very seriously. They found something, they have to post it, they have to talk about it in school, they have to bring it to the right place. It's like a whole thing, and immediately, like you open the car door, you see somebody's keys on the floor, you just entered a mitzvah. It's a little bit like Egel Arufa. It's like you found a dead body. It's like, now I have to deal with this thing. It's like you found an object. Star, you got to stop. You got to help somebody else recoup that object.
So this is I wouldn't call it a pet peeve, but I'd say a personal passion of mine in Torah. I've had the great privilege of teaching this parak of Mishnayot and this parak of Gemara. Elam Tziut, the Gemara on these 2-3 psukim is one of the most classic chapters of Gemara that gets taught, basically it's stage one for many people of Gemara learning. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who learn Eil Mitzvot. But the reason I'm so passionate about it is because it's twofold. First of all, the profundity in these 2 psukim, what you can derive from here in terms of the idea of moral responsibility for other people's possessions, the idea of the impact of one's own behavior. Lo hitalamta. Right, it's I don't know how far into the reading we want to get here, but
you can't turn away, you can't look away, you can't.
Not only that,
lo tuchal litalem.
Right, lo tuchal litalem is a general moral principle. You cannot hide yourself from responsibility. It would have been enough to say hashev tashivem lachicha. You have to return it to your brother. But there's a deep understanding of one of the great challenges we all face in morality is we want to hide. Most people, if confronted and forced to take right action, will do it. I do believe that. I don't think that the failures of the world are like real moral flaws in that sense that even when forced, I won't do what's right. The problem is that most of us would prefer to actually avoid the situation altogether. Right. And so the Torah understands that when you see the donkey gone astray or the watch dropped on the sidewalk, the problem isn't for most people, I'm going to steal that, it's mine. Okay, that happens too, but it's less than. The problem is most of us say it's not my problem. You ever read the what do they call it? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books? Do you remember the SCP field? No, that's how they hide the spaceship. SCP stands for somebody else's problem. Because when it's somebody else's problem, nobody sees it. Right? And that's exactly what the Torah is coming to speak against. Is that no, there's no such thing. Right? Right, lo tuchal litalem. Right, like you can't do it. You cannot hide. That's one. 2, it's a passion line because I do believe, and if you look at the way in which this mitzvah is articulated in the halachic, in the legal works, this is an all-embracing social structure. And if we treated this mitzvah as extensively as we do, and you're correct, it's taken quite seriously by individuals in the observant world. But if we treated it the way we treat kashrut or Shabbat, as a foundation on which to shape society, do you know that this mitzvah extends to the fact that if you see the potential for damage to someone else's property, you have to hold it off. For instance, if you walk by a house and you see that a pipe has burst in the yard, it's not your house. Now you don't know the guy. Let's not get into achicha and what the boundaries of the responsibility are. You have an obligation. You can't just walk by. It's not just a lost object that somebody else might come along and take. There's potential damage that's going to flow from that. You got to knock on that door. If there's nobody there, you have to think about what the parameters, how much do you have to sacrifice of your time and energy. But you might have to fix that pipe or stop it somehow. We have an overwhelming responsibility for the well-being of our brothers. and I feel like if we delved into the detailed obligations around that, the way in which we delve into the detailed obligations around Kashrut or Shabbat, we would have a much better society.
Mm-hmm. And it's just from this like small biblical verse, which is like
Psukim. That's it.
Right.
Two Psukim. Just whole chapters of Mishnah and the Gemara and the halachic compendium. It's fantastic. It's also, by the way, for those who are looking, it's an awesome framework for teaching people how you go from statements of the Torah all the way through actionable halacha, and how that is itself based on values and behaviors. It's so rich. So rich. I just got to do a 5-day learning with a couple on this. It was awesome.
That's awesome. That's really, really great. It's a beautiful mitzvah, and it also makes you feel safe. You know, it also makes you feel safe. Like you're like people looking out for you. You're looking out for them.
Solidarity.
Oh, by the way, last week you and I we talked about. Remember we talked about? I said karma. You said you didn't like karma.
Uh-huh.
I had some emails.
What I said was, I feel like it's letting our tradition down when we reach for terms from other traditions, because there's really nothing that we can't.
Oh, that's not a problem. You could fix that by just
own language.
Just say it in Hebrew, karma, and then it's fine. It's fine. Let's keep going. You know. Well, I was going to go into a longer thing, but what I mean to say is that you help people find stuff, get back their stuff. So too that sends a protective energy into the ether, which is like,
ether creates a real social fabric.
Right, it creates a social fabric, absolutely. But I really do believe that like don't do unto others what you wouldn't want to be done to you, and do unto others what you want to be done to you, and it really comes around in a real way. I do want to tell you that I recently learned that I was committing a sin against people, and yeah, I was committing a sin up against people. And because we're in the month of Elul, the month of repentance, I had to repent. I feel really good about it. What's that?
You're not going to confess right now, are you?
Yeah, I'm going to make a small confession. Here was my sin. I was not responding quickly to people's WhatsApps and emails. I and this goes along with sometimes I'm late and I don't and there's too many things happening, and people send me a ping, and I'm just like, I can't answer this because I can't deal with it. And I just didn't answer people. And this one guy, I reached out to him and he wouldn't answer me. And I'm like, dude, are you not answering me? And he didn't answer me. And I'm like, dude, are you like, I'm the last person you should, in Hebrew, lisanen. Yeah, you should like block type of thing. Filter out. So he right back to me. He's like, why should I filter you out? Why should I not filter you out? Because you filter me out. You don't answer me when I ask you things. And I'm like, it turned out that I thought that he was somewhat right. And I noticed that I like have this tendency to not return other people's requests quickly. And even if I say I can't do it, but at least I want to respond quickly saying I can't do it. And all day today, I've been just like shooting out things where a lot of times I would procrastinate and responding. I think this is a little bit also like lost objects. Somebody's sending something out there by mistake or by not mistake. Like, how do you take it? Do you take the other person's time, their energy, their feelings, to heart? And just imagine yourself without those keys, losing those keys, and how you want everybody around you to help you. You got to be that kind of person as well. Okay, I will change. I will do tshuva. Let's talk a little bit about cross-dressing. Cross-dressing is not cool in the Torah. There's a verse that speaks of that clearly. It says that you're not a man's clothing shall not be on a woman, or a man's object shall not be on a woman, and which is interesting that is first, right? You would actually think that it would be more the other way, which is I think maybe more prevalent, but I really don't know the numbers.
I wouldn't have thought. I don't know.
Yeah, it says lo yakli gever isha. A man's articles should not be on a woman. V'lo yilbash gever simlat isha, but a man should not cross-dress with a woman's artifacts. However, garments ki toevat Hashem elokecha kol seil. This is a abomination, but that word is a bad word. Maybe you have a better word of God. Anybody who does these things, as I recall, Rashi here talks really about not that cross-dressing per se. Right, is a problem, but rather if it leads or tries to lead towards illicit contact.
Yeah, okay. It's a machloket rishonim. It's an argument amongst the medieval authorities about what the intent of the Torah here is. And, so like for Rashi, for instance, on Purim, if people decide to dress up as Queen Esther when they're men, etc., that's not a violation of at least the Torah level prohibition.
Right.
The sages stepped in many places to reinforce these things, but other Rishonim disagree and say it's simply a definitional. This has had, aside from the modern discourse around sexual identity and freedom of expression, etc., which it's important to remember both are very modern, meaning the idea that one's identity is centered on their sexuality in the Torah is non-existent, and the idea that freedom of expression is a supreme value is also, I wouldn't say completely non-existent in the world of Torah, but it's not so high up there. It's not such a cherished value per se. But what's interesting to me actually is the piece that you asked about, which is toeva. It's a very powerful term that when it gets translated as abomination, it gets thrown around a lot, especially by our Christian brothers and sisters who that language, because there's much more of a culture war around this issue in America. And so it sort of ties into sort of the whole big picture. And so to be able to call something an abomination is very dramatic. Whereas the Gemara, and of course also, sexual acts between men is labeled such in Vayikra. The Gemara has a very interesting insight. It plays with the word and it says, it reads toeva as toeba, right? Is it something that's going to cause you to go astray? And I think it's important to recognize, and if you look in the context of the Gemara, it's very strong. I think what's happening is you literally have one of the sages dancing seductively in front of the other one to evoke his answer. Like the optics around it, I think, are pretty clear what's going on. And what they're saying is basically the idea of men being attracted to men sexually, or in this case, people dressing as the opposite gender in order to gain entry into spaces which would otherwise be denied to them, is not surprising at all in the mind of the sages. Nor is it abomination in the sense of unnatural, like all the English connotations. What it is it pulls someone away from the essential sort of path of sexuality in Torah, which is oriented toward family and stability. And that's what, if you look in the Gemara, if you want the citation, I don't have it off the top of my head. It's in the Yavamas somewhere. I can look it up in my notes. But that's really what the Torah is saying, is that basically, that's what the Gemara is saying, is that basically is a recognition that this potential is there in human beings. As people say today, sexuality is on a continuum. That being what it is, the Torah has a definite stance on what right sexuality within the family and social context are and what purpose it serves. It's not an end unto itself. And that's really the big difference, which is important to remember when you're trying to map modern sexuality onto the Torah or vice versa, is that the Torah has an overarching sense of a social responsibility with which sexuality is bound up. It is not primarily a question of individual freedom of expression and an identity.
And there's the theme that we talked about a lot on the show is procreation.
Yeah, that is
and union and procreation, building
within
the
marriage,
world.
which much even
marriage.
further within marriage, because in many ways in the Torah's mind, one of the things that distinguishes us from the animals is the fact that our physical relationships are a ultimate expression and an extension of the depth of committed psychological, emotional, and logistical relationship which exists within marriage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, marriage produces children, and hopefully, and for all those who need blessings, we send you our blessings.
Yeah, mamish.
The very next verse talks about a way that you can lengthen your days, and that is the famous commandment of shooing away the mother bird, which is technically called shooing away the mother bird. There's just no other way to say it. Shiluach haken, that's the Hebrew version, but in English, shooing away the mother bird. Okay, and sure. It doesn't have like a technical term like levirate marriage.
No.
So shooing away the mother bird. Okay, so if a bird, what's it called, a bird nest, is found on your path, or in a tree, or on the ground, and you see either chicks, or chicks, not chiclets, or eggs,
square gum things,
right? And the mom of the chicks or the eggs is on her children, right? On post. You shall not take the mother with the children.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, you should send her away, shoo her away, and the children take to yourself, so that it will be good for you and that you will have length of days. So it's a very famous mitzvah. And I just want to say that people go out of their way in their lifetime to try to fulfill the physical act of this mitzvah. Even if they don't need it, they just try to do this one time in their life so that they could shoo away the mother bird. My mom, God bless her, said to me that this is actually a mitzvah of environmentalism. She said to me, what it means is you cannot destroy you can take the yield, but you can't destroy the mother that has other generations that she can produce. And so therefore you cannot stop the whole thing at once. You cannot be a glutton and take also the chicks and the eggs and also the mom and take the whole thing. Other people say that it's really about making sure that the mother doesn't see the children being taken away. It's a more humane concept.
Right. Which, of course, are not mutually exclusive.
Right. They're not mutually exclusive. That's right. And for me, I have a personal relationship with this verse. I've talked about it with you in the past, and that when I was doing a lot of aliyah work, trying to get Jews to think about moving to the land of Israel in New York City, I saw that parents were one of the biggest blocks to Jews making aliyah, and I came to the conclusion that this verse really means that sometimes you have to distance the parents away from the children and take the children to yourself to the land of Israel. And I kept that realization secret to myself until I found a Balaturim that literally says that that's what this verse means.
When you're fundraising.
Well, yes, no, but what it really means is that sometimes, and I've come to broaden that definition to understand that sometimes there are things that block us. Sometimes there are, let's call parental things in our heads, fears, shall we say, fears of taking that leap, taking that next step. And sometimes we have to shoo away our own inside mother bird that is like limiting us from going out there and taking that next step.
Listen, this is a very deep issue, and it goes to the heart of what both the conservative and the progressive world have to offer to cultural growth, which is, on one hand, you don't want to destroy the mother, right? Meaning the values which serve as a foundation for society, for family, for character, fill in the blank. Those are values which are precious and need to be protected and handed on. At the same time, if they are unquestioned, if they have become sacred to the point in which even if they lose their meaning, they still maintain their power, well, then you can't move forward. There's no future. And so there's a constant dynamic in terms of a willingness to hold dear that which is sacred, and yet also to challenge accepted truths in order to be able to move forward in the world. It's a very delicate balance. A very delicate balance. And to me, the piece about sustainability, like you're giving credit to your mom, right? This is the Torah's equivalent of that statement, which has been sourced to so many people. I actually did some research to try to figure out who actually said it. It might have been Wendell Berry, but that classic statement of environmentalism, with that the world, we don't inherit the environment from our parents. We borrow it from our grandchildren. And it's very important to remember that what we do now in the world is not just the privilege we've gotten from the past, but it's the responsibility we have to the future. And so therefore, I think this is the Torah's way of teaching us that. And that's why arichut yamim, like a length of days upon the land, is the promised blessing.
Right.
There.
Now this was famously challenged. Are you there? Are you there, Mike?
I'm there.
We have you a little bit on delay. Maybe I'm on delay. One of us is on delay.
For me, you're on delay.
That's okay. How do you know? Maybe you're on delay. Okay. These are philosophical questions. By the way, I just want to tell you, just parenthetically, just between me and you, I just heard a great show about Descartes. And
what? About
right.
Descartes?
I really didn't.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, and I really didn't know. Yeah. It was very eye-opening. And Descartes or Cartesian thinking and all that. It was a very eye-opening. Yeah, it was eye-opening.
He relates to our own journey into early modernity.
Well, I was again. We're still in the realm of parentheses here. I was like, once I heard Descartes, I was like, let me see how far from Descartes it is to Spinoza. And it was like he's like right afterwards, and I'm like,
it's like 100
years.
It
was like an aha moment, right? But he was very influenced. It was very influenced. Okay, it made total sense to me.
Spinoza made his reputation as a philosopher with his Cartesian analysis and bringing a sort of a Euclidean approach to Cartesian thought, which really laid the foundations for his own principles. And the ethics, which is where he speaks out his thought. But that we're probably going. Can I tell you a quick Descartes joke, and then we'll move on? Right? Descartes walks in the bar, and bartender says, "Can I get you a drink?" And Descartes says, "I think not," and disappears. All right, moving on.
That is a funny joke. That's a funny joke for the academia, for the academy. Sometimes, yeah, that's right. Okay. Here's another one about care, like we talked about with the lost object. If you're going to build a roof that's like a flat roof, you got to put a fence on it. And here in the Middle East, we have a lot of flat roof buildings. You must put a fence on it. By the way, my Arab brothers and sisters oftentimes do not put fences around the roofs, and from time to time there are accidents. And
one of the people that worked at Pardes died by falling off his roof. Young-ish Arab man, just terrible.
And the Torah says, why? Because the faller shall fall from it. The faller may fall from it, but the faller can't fall from it. And famously, it says the Rashi says, that there is sometimes you have a judgment against you. You don't want him this person that has a judgment against him to go on your roof because you didn't put on the fence. Like sometimes how should we say this right?
Well, first read the Rashi,
maybe just you want me to read it?
His death shouldn't be brought about, right, at your hands. Right? That basically that God brings about merit in the world at the hands of the meritorious, and he brings about judgment in the world at the hands of those who deserve judgment. Meaning, the decisions that we make open up a channel in the world. They open up a channel in the world for God's action. God's action is going to come into the world no matter what. We don't get to choose that. But do you want to be the vehicle of blessing, or you want to be the vehicle of judgment? It's very simple. You do mitzvot, you're going to be a vehicle of blessing. You don't do mitzvot, even if you're not having your punishment, you'll just be a vehicle even of other people's punishment, which is certainly nothing that any of us want.
Right. I think also a related term to that in a more secular kind of way is negligence. Like, you cannot, if you're going to build a roof, there is something about high places that somebody will climb up to and has the chance of falling off of it. That is just it's mistaber. It's logical. It's plausible that somebody's going to fall off of it. So therefore, don't do things that will lead to plausible eventuality that you don't want. Okay, don't drive and what's that? Go ahead.
Well, it's part of a larger discourse. It's important to remember that the Torah, of course, focuses on obligations and not on rights, which finds particularly interesting expressions in property law. In America, we think about property rights. Once I own something, like what are my rights in regard to it? But the Torah is only interested in property obligations. Okay, eventually we have to tease out the rights because that's a logical conclusion. In the same way American law talks about obligations. It's not, but what you say here is if you own a house, that creates obligations. And if you don't fulfill your obligations, you're not just violating some divine command. You're being negligent because what it means to own property is you have an obligation in the world. You got an ox. Tether it, dude. If you know it's a goring ox, keep it out of my backyard,
Right. But I wanted to add you're bringing it to the kind of deeper and more higher level of obligation. I wanted to make it even a lower level, which is concern yourself with probabilities. Like look at eventualities. Like open your eyes. This is going to lead to. You don't want that. You don't want to be like my wife says to me. God bless my wife. She's got a Hungarian, side which is like and also pre-guilt. And she just says to me like I could never live, God forbid, with running over somebody in the car. I need to say like, and that's a beautiful thing, which is a kind of my wife and I we have she does yira and I do ahava. Okay, she does fear and I do love. But that Hungarian type of sense of like I would never be able to live with myself with the guilt of doing some kind of thing. Therefore, I will not text and drive. I will not text and drive because it very well has the plausibility, not probability, but plausibility of leading to an eventuality I don't want. Open your eyes, see where it's going to lead to. Okay. That's right. Now, there's a few things in life that are eventualities that you can never escape. Famously, death, and taxes. But there's another one, which is going to the bathroom. Going to the bathroom is an eventuality, and you want it to be an eventuality because if you're not going to the bathroom, and you're not well, or you're in dialysis, and we wish you a refuah shlema, a quick healing. It is unpleasant thing. We want to be able to go
in the wilderness, eating them on klum basavadam machnis ve'eino motzi. It's just not how it works. What goes in must come out.
Right, and the manna did not come out because it was a superfood par excellence.
Which was alarming, as you can imagine. They were alarmed.
It was alarming.
Yeah,
that's right. It was like years of constipation, but really it was perfect health. But in any case, God says to us, if you are a fighting force, and if anybody's ever been in a fighting force in an army, it's not the most hygienic or beautiful thing in the world. It's men, sweaty and smelly and etc. But the Torah says, hey, you cannot go to the bathroom, and we're speaking here, number 2. We're talking about, excrement. You cannot, gdolim, as we say, you cannot do that within the camp. Rather, you have to have a specified place outside the camp. Moreover, you got to have on your tool belt, you got to have a shovel. And when you go to the bathroom, you have to dig and excrete there, and then cover it up what you went to the bathroom. And this is, I cannot tell you how seriously I've taken this commandment in my life, not just for myself personally, but for others. And when I was in the IDF reserves, so I was a Jeep driver, and one of the things that you're allowed to get as a Jeep driver is a shovel, because sometimes a Jeep like a shovel, but the one that's like the shovel is not flat, rather on a 90-degree angle. Is that a different name for that? In any case,
actually, technically.
Oh, okay.
Whatever.
So then I wanted to know. That's good. So I would stand in line for an hour sometimes just to request this thing, to get this proper piece of equipment. It was good for the car, but I had my secret interest in it, which was so that I could help my secret agenda was to cover up the poop and so that I could loan it out to my friends. And I would also, many of them were non-observant Israelis, and they would say to me, I would say to them, this is a commandment in the Torah. Here's some baby wipes, and here's the hoe, here's the shovel. They'd be, and I'm like, this is a commandment in the Torah. They'd be like, no, it's not. And I would be like, yes, it is. And I showed them, and they'd be like, that is amazing. And the mitzvah is, and and I know, Rabbi Mike, you've extensively had nature training and been out in the wild a lot. When you go out to the wild and you meet somebody else's poop that has not been covered up, it's the worst. It is the worst.
Inhuman. It is inhuman.
It's inhuman, and it's just so destructive. There's flies, the whole thing. And instead, if you dig and you do things right, then it's like everything goes back to nature. There's something beautiful about it. There's something correct about it. Let's put it that way. Things are going in their right place, into the earth. They're becoming nutrients. And what God is telling you that, and this it finishes off with, your army camp has to be holy. Very famously, V'haya machanecha kadosh. Your camp has to be holy. And that's because in Judaism, excrement is not holy. There is no mezuzah on our bathrooms, right? But when we come out of the bathroom, we make a blessing on having gone to the bathroom, having things going well.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. And we're so thankful for it. And I've taught this to the kids as well. I mean, I'm talking about from the littlest age, from my 4 or 5 year old, really taught them to dig, do it right, cover it up. And my God, it's environmental, it's human, it's correct, it feels right, etc. It's just like you are now with creation in a proper way. But if you didn't do it, it's like you didn't understand your role in creation.
Yeah, I mean, without over dramatizing what is a very earthy command, and I think that you put your finger on it, is that one of the deep elements of wisdom in the Torah is how physical action can either be an integration and a rightness with creation, or it can be a disruption and a deviation and really a conflict with creation. And it would be very easy for us to dismiss the physical as our sort of lower animal side. And here we see, actually, in many ways, it's the key for right living.
Is this something that you taught when you were out there? And
I've spent much time teaching young men and women how to go to the bathroom in the woods, and without getting into the details in various environments that involves different things. And I was trained in what's called a zero impact ethic, which meant that for most of the trips we did, we didn't even carry toilet paper, or if you did, you pack it out. So I don't really need details right now. It's not
yeah, I'm like, all right.
Okay. Ask Mike about that later.
Okay, we have a few more things to cover. Divorce. It's a mitzvah. It's a commandment to divorce. Explain that to me. What does that mean?
I mean, on some level, it's the idea that though we believe in sort of the shared, like a certain element of destiny and divine intent in people coming together in marriage, we also believe that you get to put it two ways. We also believe that life is more complicated than that, and that there are other factors, and that therefore, if a man and a woman, if it doesn't work to be together, it's just as much a mitzvah to separate as it would have been to be together. The other way to look at it is, it's like a quote my dear friend Dave Mason, my dear friend and co-author, I should say, Dave Mason. Don't let a bad decision lead to a miserable life, right? So, we live in a world in which the whole quitters never prosper ethic comes very strongly through certain channels. But the reality is, the flip side is that sometimes quitting can be the best thing you do. And in case it's not quitting so much, is it's making a conscious decision that the situation which is your decisions have led to is not one you want to be in. And so therefore, it having that courage to step away is a mitzvah, and it's not, and sort of culturally and even halachically, traditional Jewish society is very does everything it can. Let's put it that way. Does everything it can to avoid divorce and to help couples work through whatever it is that's driving them apart. But at the same time, like you said from the beginning, there are situations in which it's not just the right thing to do, but it's a mitzvah. It's something you must do.
Right. I think you said something very deep right now, which is you could also, like you talked about, like the never fail type of lifestyle or never make mistakes. I think what the Torah is telling you is, I'm giving you the freedom to be a human being and to make mistakes. And if you had to make them, if it did happen to you and it's very painful, we're still going to do this the right way. We're still going to let you reverse out of this thing the right way. And we're going to protect the woman through the ketubah, and we're gonna do a lot of stuff here, and we're gonna deal with damage. We're gonna deal with the damage. We're gonna deal with a problem, but we're gonna give you a sense that life is not destroyed just because it went down a wrong path or a path that didn't work out fully. And that's very big. You know, people that commit suicide, God forbid, a lot of times the main thing that drives them is a sense that it was game over. I can't fix this thing.
They're stuck. Yeah.
I can't. It's already ruined. You know what I mean? I might as well just hit restart or flush it out. It's not. I can't be fixed, and that's a horrific feeling. The Torah here shows you, okay, man, you went, or woman, you went down a bad path. It's all right.
It didn't work out. Yeah, it doesn't even have to be you went down a bad path. Sometimes, listen, I do enough couples work to know that sometimes people just change.
Right.
Life is long. You get married for certain reasons at a certain stage of life, and people change, people grow, situations change, and it is not always the right thing to just tough it out. Sometimes it is, and so that's a very delicate question. But the Torah recognizes, like you said, that that there is a place for breaking what you've built.
A very good friend of mine and of yours was divorced twice, and then got remarried a third time. And I'll never forget the speech that he gave at his l'chaim towards the third wedding. He said, "You know what? I'm so glad that I am only marrying this girl as my third try, because I'm going to be so much of a better husband, so much more sensitive. I've made all the mistakes, but this one's for keeps, and I've learned that the mistake I've learned through this process, and now this wedding is the right one." And so he found meaning in a Viktor, what was his name, Viktor Frankl kind of way, which is like he's found meaning through the tragedy of two divorces.
Well, listen, this is a profound sod of Kabbalah, a profound secret of the mystic Torah, which is called zivug sheni. Right, this idea that, and it's really rooted in the whole idea that the first covenant with God over the tablets at Sinai was broken and rebuilt. Right? There is this idea of zivug sheni, of the second union, right? That even though, of course, the biblical ideal of the wife of one's youth and the innocence, etc. But there's another face to that, which is that once, like you said, once you've actually become who you are, the entering into the second stage of relationship, or the second, relationship altogether, is a much more profound and deeper union. And it's important to know that doesn't have to necessitate, God forbid, a divorce or a death, etc. And it's a very important thing for people who've been married for a while to think about, is there's a stage of marriage at which you have to recommit. It's not enough to simply be vested in the structure, and we got the kids, and of course we're not going to get divorced, we're married. That's not enough. It carries some people through, but there's an opportunity. Let's put it this way: it may be enough, but there's an opportunity for zivug sheni, for stepping back and saying, you know what, I am fully choosing, as if I'm asking you to marry me today, that as who I am now, which is certainly not who I was when I got married, and as who you are, vice, the same too, that we are going to be married once again, and there's a real power in doing that.
Absolutely, and that's also true in the service of God. Sometimes you have to redo your bonds, and that's what Elul is really all about, which is like renewing your vows.
Yep, recommitting for sure.
Okay, let's just go to a prosaic one, and then we'll finish off with. Let's go to Lo tachsom shor bedisho. 4 words: do not muzzle do not
muzzle an ox as he stomps out the grain. Right.
Don't muzzle an ox. And this has become this has become a statement here in Israel, like a phrase that is used oftentimes even by secular people, which is like, look, there's certain things that don't
wait it. Just don't
right,
ask.
don't over limit me. Don't over limit something. You know what I mean? It's like if you're sitting down to dinner and then somebody makes too long of a Dvar Torah before the food, somebody will say, dude, come on. You gotta let the people eat.
It's an unnatural thing to sit in front of food while you yap.
Right. It's not natural. And the meaning of that, I guess, is that there are natural things and that we have to be yes, we as Jews, as observant Jews, have so many strictures and limitations upon us. But at the same time, the Torah says to us, all the things that are not allowed, there's a taste of them in what is allowed. And these things are for your benefit. They're not there to constantly whip you and keep you in shape. It's actually good for you. And I know what I'm talking about, says God. But this statement says, don't be too, what's the word I'm looking for? Too strict. Don't be too strict with the animal. The animal's an animal. It wants to eat. Let it eat. Yes, keep it from going to somebody else's field. And yes, don't plow together with a different animal and many other laws. But at the same time, don't totally muzzle it, because that's unnatural and it's just going to buck. It's just going to buck the work.
And I would add to that, there's always a danger as human beings that we treat animals or certainly also other people as a means to an ends, right? Like, here, this ox works for me. The goal here is threshing the wheat.
Right.
The goal here is not feeding my ox. And what the Torah is telling you is yes, and remember that this ox is an independent creature. It's part of a system, eating and reproducing of its own, that has nothing to do with you. Right. Don't kid yourself into thinking that you can reduce this animal to a complete object of your interest. Because if you do, that's stepping out of that natural living that you're speaking about, and leads to far-reaching negative consequences. And I think that's one of the reasons, like you're pointing out, it's become a bituy, an expression in Israeli society. So at a certain point, it's like give your example. It's like, here we all sit down to eat, and there's a wonderful meal in front of us, and some guy's just going on and on and on about his Dvar Torah. He's completely divorced himself from our experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We are simply an audience for his thoughts, as opposed to human beings who are sitting in front of food, who are hungry or distracted, etc. You see how the usage of it is works in both ways.
Rav Mike, this leads me to tell you that we have a new arrival in our house. My son Elazar and my daughter Leah, both they brought in a kitty from the outside, and the kitty is now part of our lives. Just like you said, like, most of it serves us great. Some of it we have to serve it instead of it serving us. It's like, okay, you gotta train it and feed it, and it costs money, and transport it when we go somewhere, and think about where it's gonna be, and the whole shebang. I think it's been a blessing for my kids, and it's like an add-on to the family. But I agree with you 100%. And what you said, which is like, it's not just there to serve us. It's now kind of like a member of the family, and we have to actually consider it.
Existence, yeah.
Right. It really does. And this morning I woke up early today. I was writing an article, and Kitty, which is what I call her, Kitty, with the Israeli accent, came in and joined us. All right. Let's finish up our Torah portion. We are in the book of Deuteronomy. Yeah. Let's just finish up right now with one last one, which is a big one, which is that bizarro anti-Jewish energy in this world, the energy of doubt, the energy of cooling off faith, which is none other than Amalek, the Amalekites. Yeah, that's right. Boo. And yet boo, and yet respect, right? Like, to me, I'm like, respect these guys, respect them, respect what they're about.
Recognize the reality of their existence, yeah,
and the reality of their power.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. And it says, remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you left Egypt, and he happened to you on the way. The happen is the word karcha, which is happened to you, but it could also mean it cooled you off. That's the famous explanation that, right? Korcha, which is it like it cooled off your faith, cooled you off, or cooled off the fear of others because they saw that you could be attacked. Vaizanev becha, he hit you in the back parts. Kol hanichshalim acharecha, all the weak ones that you had, the stragglers, and that there's something about Amalek which attacks the weak people in society. The ones that aren't full of faith, they will be hit with more unfaith. And there's an element of cooling off, of faithlessness, and our rabbis also make a gematria, a numerical relationship between the word Amalek, equivalency between the word Amalek and the word Safek, which is doubt. I would today translate it, instead of doubt, today's Amalek is cynicism.
Yeah,
cynicism, which is like, it's a kind of cynical version of doubt. It's like, I don't know if I can say it's more sophisticated, but I would also actually, I would say to you, no, it's actually a cheaper way to get out of it, because saying I don't believe that there's a God, that's an intense statement. But if you don't want to go there, you just be like, I don't know, God, I mean, it's a little bit cheesy,
really,
right? So that way you don't have to personally repudiate it and think about it philosophically. You just make it into a joke. You cynicalize it, and you find cynicism. By the way, I want to tell you something. Here in Israel, I know you were finishing up. So I'll say, in Israel, the last 2 weeks, every successive week there has been a giant, humongous news scandal. 2 weeks ago, it was the children's what's it called? A kindergarten, and the kindergarten teacher was smacking her, and the helpers were smacking around these kids. They caught it on videotape, and for Israel, that's like, no, we cannot have our kindergarten smacking the kids. But it was like, and I met people, there was like a deep soul searching. Now there's a case of potential rape of a 16-year-old girl by a lot of men, and this is all alleged. But both of these cases were alleged. But the bottom line is that, on the one hand, these are both horrific cases. On the other hand, sometimes I think to myself that the news media puts it out there to do one thing, which is to make us doubt that this is a good nation and a good time and a good land, and we have a good God with good people, and that there's wonderful values and wonderful things happening. And I said to this one guy, I said to him, is there a news story about a 4-year-old who went to kindergarten and blossomed in the last 2 years? No, there's no news story about that. There's a news story about, the drop of poison in the bucket of water, and indeed a drop of poison can ruin a bucket of water. But at the same time, a piece of meat, that's 1/60th in a milk pot, will not totally ruin it. Like, sometimes you got to know how to fish it out, or how to not let it. And I'm saying that the energy of Amalek is the one that sows doubt and disbelief and cynicism.
Yep. I mean, the only thing I would add is that it's always worthy to note what comes before the appearance of Amalek. In general, in the narrative, we're familiar with Hayesh Hashem B'Kir B'Nei Ma'in, right? It's God in our midst or not. That's the doubt element. And here, there's two things which kind of come full circle with what we were speaking about before, which is the mitzvah that comes before is that just weights and measures. And just weights and measures comes with a very noteworthy reward. Right? Here's another case where long days on the land. Just run your society correctly. Have a standard which is fair and inflexible for everyone. And last but certainly not least, right? That is this abomination, and this is sometimes missed by people who get on the abomination high horse and talk about sexual issues, etc. They miss it. It's an abomination to cheat people, folks. It's an abomination to ruin the standards of measure in your society, right? Because that will lead you astray to thinking that really it's okay to take advantage of people. Really, justice is not an important value, etc., etc. That's what brings Amalek. The opening to Amalek is when we lose faith in our obligation to justice, right? In this context, we have an obligation to maintain a standard of justice. And as soon as we begin to doubt that such a standard is possible, Amalek comes right in.
Rav Mike Feuer, people can find more of your podcasts and lectures and classes, and also your spiritual guidance that can be one-on-one at Rav Mike Feuer at, oh my gosh, I'm confused. Here we go. Facebook.com/Rav Mike Feuer, right?
Yeah,
That's right. And jewishstory.co is your website, which has all of your stuff there, including your other show on the Land of Israel Network called Jewish Story, which is a fabulous podcast.
Just started season 4 this week.
I'm very excited, actually. If I haven't listened to it, that means I haven't been jogging enough. So I shall be jogging and listening to your voice in my ears. I'm looking forward to that, and I really recommend everybody check out jewishstory.co. I want to thank you so much for joining me for Parshat Ki Tetzeh. When you go out to war in the book of Deuteronomy, chapters 21, chapter 21 through 25, and the book of Dvarim, Chaf Aleph ad Chaf Hey. And I want to thank you so much for all your great teaching, and please welcome in all of our names your new students that are coming to Pardes this year, and all the students that are starting to come in, even through the Corona blockade, they're coming in to learn in the land of Israel.
Well, it's great to see you. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Rav Mike Feuer, thank you so much for being with me. And thank you, folks, for being with us here on the Yishai Fleisher Show and on the Land of Israel Network. I want to thank Ben Bresky and Moshe Herman and Tabitha for getting the Land of Israel show out to the world on our podcast. And I do want to ask you to join us in so many ways that you can join us, including YishaiFleisher.com. And we're soon going to be setting up an awesome new Patreon site. So help us keep broadcasting. If you would see me in the street, you may buy me a cup of coffee. You may want to. If you do, then help us support the show by buying us a cup of coffee and helping my team and all the good folks and guests continue to keep the show widely dispersed and free. So thank you very much. Just go to YishaiFleisher.com/donate. And a new Patreon site is coming soon. Thank you to all the people who joined here on social media, including my good friend tour guide Aaron, who says, "Hi, Maiko," which I think he's referring to Mike Feuer. And Penny says, "Great learning class." Thank you both. Yasher Koch. Thank you, Penny. You are awesome. And thank you for your picture of your little puppy there. Learn Hebrew TV says, "Hi, shalom to you." And Brian Feinstein says, "Hey, Rabbi, what you are explaining is what my father of blessed memory would always say in regard to the possibility of problems liability. He would say either don't do such and such or you should do such and such because there's no percentage in either, not doing or doing as per the potential situation at hand." I think what you're talking about is really being careful to foresee the future and do things that will lead you to a good future, including learning Torah and staying connected. Thank you to Christopher, who says shalom from Lexington, Kentucky. Shalom to you. And Linda, who says shalom from New York. And I say shalom back to you. And I send you blessings from the land of blessings to all of you. Please write me an email, Yishai@YishaiFleisher.com or Yishai@thelandofisrael.com. And I'm sending you lots of love and lots of blessings from the land of blessings. Only good things. May we create that society that we talked about just now, defeat the dark energy of doubt and cynicism in this world, elect great officials. God bless the United States for good coming up election. And thank you, Israel, for not going to elections. May we have great teachers and great leaders. And may we be great teachers and leaders in our own life. So lots of love to you, friends. And thanks again for being with me. Oh, and Bill Evans says, just saw a video a little late joining. I'm receiving here in Indiana just fine. Shalom. Bill Evans, you can catch everything on repeat on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Periscope. Lots of love, guys. Stay tuned. More great stuff is on the way. And shalom.